Hey folks, welcome to the midweek property show. This is all about Fife property market insights. How to sell your home faster in 2024. Is that a real possibility? Maybe? QVT. Okay, so here we are, Sophie. Faster property market insights. Inflation, by the way, this morning is coming again at 2%. Core inflation sitting about 3.9%, and inflation for services is sitting at 5% as well. So inflation for service industry, inflation for core inflation is pretty high in comparison to the 2% it was last month as well. This could mean interest rates potentially next month might not drop. Eek. Okay, so what's happening in the Fife property market, Sophie? What what length of time does it take to sell a property, and why is this a crucial indicator?
Well, crucial indicator is we need to break it down. We can't just say one shoe fits all. We need to break it down into, well, firstly, your micro regions. We need to break it down into price points. There's a lot of contributing factors into how long your property is going to take to sell. And that's probably one of the main questions when we're in appointments is we get asked, how long is it going to take for my property to sell? That's probably one of the very top
Yeah,
questions we get asked.
that,
But that
and
is,
that's effectively how long's a piece of string.
well, yeah, it's just going like that in the air, isn't it? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
properties can sell quick, and I don't know about you, but I've experienced it as well. You know yourself. Some properties actually just go like that, and then other properties you think it will actually go like that, actually are still sitting, and it's like, really? I
Yeah.
would never have thought that. So
Mhm.
we talk about the length of time it takes to sell a property because it's a crucial indicator to the health of the property market itself. It's not necessarily the price point, because price point is usually typically maintained, if not just a wee bit higher or a wee bit lower. So it's not the end of the world, considering in the last 4 to 5 years, property prices in the Fife area have gone up 25%. So a
Mhm.
small adjustment here and there isn't going to make a world of difference. And when you're going to trade for another property and buy another property, you're going to have that small adjustment in that one as well. So it's trading like for like apples with apples, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. For Fife homeowners and investors alike, and it's understanding that trend and understanding that, because again, something we hear at
Mhm.
appointments day in, day out is the classic, I know my property is going to sell, my property will sell really quick because so and so's
Get it
down the
every
street
time.
did, or so and so down the street did. If we had a pound for every time we heard that, we probably wouldn't be we wouldn't be working. So it's
Yeah.
understanding those trends so that they can make better decisions. But again, that's all down to your agent to guide you and give you that knowledge to help you understand what the market's actually looking like and making it as relevant as possible. um, Properties sell quicker often reflects a strong market with a high demand, whereas longer sale times might suggest there's a surplus. Obviously in some of the areas of Fife just now we are seeing an overstock, and seeing them taking longer, and we'll see
Where
that
are
as we
you? Where are we
break down.
seeing? Where in Fife is there kind of an overstock just now? Is there an oversupply of property? Where would you say?
Straight away it's St Andrews. Without a shadow of a
Yeah.
doubt, we're seeing an overstock in St Andrews, and every day more and more is coming to market. But we're seeing that it's not your average selling time in St Andrews. There's a lot of stock sitting, so that is almost a separate market in itself.
Yeah. I'm just looking just now. There's wow. In the KY16 area in St Andrews, there's 206 properties available to buy now on average. If we look
Mhm.
at it, round about 30 properties a month are actually bought. That effectively comes down to there's about 7 months worth of stock almost in the St Andrews market. Now that will
Mhm.
include the new builds as well, which are advertised by Hedon Developments and also by David Wilson Homes. But
Mhm.
there's certainly a lot to choose from, isn't there? And
Yes.
what I've been recognising as well is the new developers are actually giving away huge incentives for people to
Mhm.
buy by actually just paying their stamp duty outright and low deposits as well. Maybe we
Mhm.
shouldn't be advertising that one here.
No, no. But there's I
But
think another
it's
percentage.
true. It's a true reflection, isn't it? It's actually just it clearly points out that, you know, I think most homeowners in the St Andrews area in the KY16, which is, you know, Lookers. Well, when you think about it, look at Lookers. Look at the police house in Lookers. I mean, that effectively sold from social media for an astronomical figure compared to what it was valued at.
Yeah,
So it
the
just shows
ministry.
you,
Yeah.
even
Mhm.
though there's an oversupply in an area, if you price appropriately, because that one was definitely priced and marketed appropriately and properly, you can often get that offer before anyone else, because it is a choice, isn't it? You know, there's 2 or 3 people in the market looking for a property, and you have a list of maybe 10 properties to choose from. Then it's a 1 in 3 chance you're going to sell.
Yep, absolutely.
So what about, you know, are we having the same sort of effect in the East Nuke area?
Again, the East Nuke is almost a separate market in itself. When you look at in terms of East Nuke, there's a lot of stock there as well. Is it not about more 3 to 4 months of East Nuke stock sitting? And
Eight,
again, more and more.
82 in the KY10 area, which incorporates everything along the East Nuke area except for Ely and Eros Ferry, which is KY9. So if you take in, and this is, anybody could check this out actually, real time on Rightmove just now, just by typing in the postcode, the first 3 numbers. So 82 versus 22. So there's effectively about 104. Now, if you look at, if we just quickly look at, if you just bear with me, and I'll look at the weekly update that I do, and I'll look at the month of July, June, July. Let's have a wee look at that. July, if I can find it. Maybe the 30th, beginning of July. Here we go. So according to this, in the June, in the East Nuke area, roughly about 26 people buy every single month. So when you're looking at that, 100, yeah, you're right, about 4 months worth of stock available to buy in the East Nuke area. So again, that's another market. It tends to be suffering. Do you think that's to do with things like the legislation on the serviced accommodation and the fact that you've got to now have a license, and also maybe the double council tax on holiday homes now?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what the most of our valuations that we're going out to in the East Nuke is second homes, and it's just not
Yeah.
feasible for them anymore. So there is a lot of that. So that definitely has had an impact.
hmm So basically, when the properties sell quickly, as you said, it often reflects a stronger market with a high demand, whereas the longer time suggests a surplus of properties, which we've just demonstrated right now. So probably Central Fife, I think, Levenmouth in that is round about just over 2 months worth of stock, and then when you go into the west of Fife, for one reason or another, there seems to be they seem to go quite well. They seem to go just over a month. But do you think that's maybe to do with the fact that commuting to Edinburgh is an easy option for people and it's a different price point?
Oh, absolutely. You would, if you can be in the Dunfermline area and you can just, get over to Edinburgh, because not everybody is working in the offices, they're being in the big cities. So there's a more the increase of coming out of the pandemic, being able to work from home. They would rather be able to get more for the money, a different lifestyle. And that's why you're seeing the Dunfermline area, obviously. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we can then surmise then monitoring how long it takes to sell a property can help gauge the market's performance and actually make informed decisions about whether you're buying or selling.
Absolutely.
So when we look at the average time then in Fife to sell a property, what are we looking at? What is the average times and stuff like that? Where are we with this now?
So as we mentioned, you need to break it down obviously by price band. So by breaking it down by price band, you could be anything under your 100,000. So whether it be, your 50,000 flat or your house that's at 90,000, average, again, we use the word average loosely, you'd be
Yeah.
about 34, 35 days, then going up to your 100 to your 200. It is your 39 days, and then you get into your kind of 200, 300 price bracket, where then affordability does come obviously into effect, because then that's not reaching to all of the demographic because of affordability. So that is your about 52 days, and then it goes up again in increments again, because obviously we are getting to the higher price points. You're getting 300 to 400 is getting right up to your 69 days. 400 to 500, there or thereabouts about your 60, 69 days again. And then of course, when we're getting over that 500 price point, that is where you're hitting your 90 days plus, where you're getting the bracket from 500,000 up to your million. But then surprisingly, when you hit a million, you're only about 28 days average.
Probably because it's been one property in the whole of Fife. It's actually
Yeah.
sold in quarter two itself. So whether you're a landlord looking to liquidate your buy-to-let investments or a Fife homeowner contemplating selling your home, understanding these latest market trends is pretty crucial. So this data from quarter two of 2024 actually provides a valuable insight into how the Fife property market is performing itself. And recent independent research indicates of the 1,933 Fife homes that sold in quarter two of 2024, it's taken on average, if you bring all these together, 47 days to agree a sale. Now, a lot of people out there will be sitting looking at that right now and thinking, my house has been on longer than 47 days. But remember, this is an average, and you've got to then take into account what your local market is, just what we've talked about just now, and just what Sophie has actually indicated. So this notable improvement from quarter one, where it took an average of 71 days. So in quarter one, it was an average of 71 days, but there was less transactions. Therefore, the data would have been a bit more skewed in terms of that. But I think as we've got more data now, it's now beginning to become clear that it's still taking round about the 2 months on average to sell a property in Fife. However, not all properties sell in the same time frame, and there is often quite a difference in selling times when we consider different price bandings and also different micro regions. And there you go. As we said, as you can see, there's quite a difference between the Fife house price bands and selling. So in comparison, in the UK, for example, in quarter two of 2024, under 100,000, it took 69 days to sell a property, which is actually, Fife is actually performing better than the UK average. And 100 to 200,000 was 63 days, 200 to 300 was 69 days, 300 to 400, 62, 400 to 500, 64, 500 to 1 million, 81 days, and the 1 million, here's the 1 million and above, 92 days. So I think that's more appropriate to say as the average overall, and possibly just a quarter one in Fife. There's not very many properties at a million plus in the Fife area. So that information might be just a wee bit skewed because it's such a small sample in that period. So what that tells us then is Fife is still bearing quite well in consideration to the UK when we compare it to the UK market, but Fife isn't doing that quite well in consideration to where we were in the boom times. So we're somewhere in between, I would say. Would you say that's an accurate reflection?
Yeah, I would say you're quite accurate with that. Yeah.
So when we're looking at this then, what sort of tips would you say to give Fife homeowners to expedite their property sale, to make it, to improve it or get it quicker? I mean, quicker's a difficult one to do, but there is properties out there more than likely sitting right now that could do with these tips in order to give them the best chance. Because I keep saying to people, it's like, maybe on the face of it, all estate agents look the same. Yes, we all sell houses, but we all do this in a different way to everybody else. And then it's like almost saying then that every car gets you from A to B. Yeah,
Exactly.
but some will get you there quicker, and some will be more comfortable, and some will be less comfortable, and some will actually break down. So it's kind of like it's a great analogy, to show the same thing in terms of the estate agency market, in terms of the letting agency market, that could be the case. So what sort of tips would you be giving people if to expedite the property sale then?
Very first tip. So we're gonna go with like the top 5, but the very first tip is you need to choose an expert in the area, not just Tom Blogs that covers everywhere and is not an expert in the area. It's about choosing the best estate agent, a reputable estate agent that is known in the area. And when I say known, I don't mean they've got the most boards up in that area. That's not the case. It's like we've demonstrated here. It's, do they know the area, and do they know, just like the micro regions, and how that market is performing? Because I don't know if a bit like you will go out to appointments and it could be a local agent, but actually the information that they've been given is completely different what we've been given, but we're actually dealing with facts. And you can't argue with facts. So it's not necessarily a local agent that's got the most boards, it's who's the expert in the area and has a proven track record. That's the crucial part as well. And it's asking that it's for that person as well. So when you've got that agent sitting in front of you, it's asking the right questions. It's almost they need to do their homework and be asking the agent, okay, what is being achieved over the area? What is currently in the market? What is realistic? Asking the questions, how long it takes to find that buyer. But again, that's another question we get asked is, how long is it going to take for my property to sell and how much am I going to get? They're the two questions we always get.
I think a really good one to ask, is how much on average do you achieve over the home report valuation?
Exactly.
Because I think that's a great benchmark. Because at the end of the day, you want as much money for your house as possible. And we could take it for granted that most surveyors are all going to come in at the same price because they're all doing the same detail. They're all getting the same comparables. So ideally, your benchmark is to compare agents is actually how much on average do you get over the home report value in this area for these properties. I think that's a real good one, definitely, because that can often outweigh. I'll give a typical example here. Imagine if an estate agent, and let's take an example here. Imagine if an estate agent got 5% over the home report value, and another estate agent only got 2% over the home report value. So therefore, for every £100,000, there's a differential of 3%, which is £3,000. Imagine if that estate agent, it came to you, it was getting the 5%, and the other one was getting 2%, and the one with 5% said, look, it's going to be another £500 to £1,000 to sell your property over the other one. But yet they're achieving £3,000 more on average for their house for that property. Imagine if that property is 200,000. That means they're achieving £6,000 more. And yet the cost to use them or the investment to use their services, maybe £1,000 more. So there's, and you're only going to pay them if they actually sell the property and you accept the offer for the property itself. So it's kind of a no-brainer when you think about it. If somebody on track record has achieved more consistently over a year, for example, than another agent, and another agent just goes in with a typical example of cheapest chips, race to the bottom. I think that's another thing you've got to watch out for. If an agent goes in with cheapest chips, race to the bottom, and their fees, in other words, can we do the cheapest fee? Then you've got to think to yourself, how do you think they're going to negotiate the price of your house at the end? What do you think? How strong do you think they are if they're one trick pony to come in to get your business is all about just actually being the cheapest fee? That's what would worry me. And not everybody will understand that, and not everybody will get that, but that's the way the world is. Some people see the glass half full, where other people see the glass half empty. And I think the optimists actually see it as, yeah, that makes sense. It's a cost benefit analysis, isn't it? When you come into an accountancy world like I've been in, and you go in manufacturing, you assess the rate of return on something, and you think to yourself, okay, if I got that scenario, then I would clearly get a lot more money. So if I subtracted their fees, I'd be left with more in my pocket. That's another way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely what it is. But then, how do you think an agent then? That maybe brings us on to point 2, though. How do you think an agent then achieves that higher price for a property? Is it just down to luck, or what? What do you think does that?
No, it needs to be quality, and that's where we are. We are quality, and it's ensuring that we are showcasing the property to its full potential. So that's right from the offset. That is from the professional photographer, it's from the descriptionist, it's from the video walkthroughs, it's from the social media and the investment in that. So our clients invested in us because we are investing in that, and that is what gets the property seen, and that's what gets it sold. But it's also having it out there on the major portals. It's not just chucking a board up. There's so much more that goes on in the background, and that's why, as I say, the photography, the descriptions, it's the interest, it's the floor plans, and it is just doing that. It's the digital marketing aspect of it, because just like you said there, Main Street Lucas sold from social media. So that just shows you there it is all having it is that high quality listing to get you that
I
buyer.
think as well, I'm just sneaking about here looking for stuff. This is actually quite important. When you mentioned about floor plans, this is quite interesting. So, and I showed somebody this morning. So when you look at that floor plan, what do you see? You instantly see where the bathrooms are, don't you? So somebody that can't read very well because the writing's too small will instantly know that that's the bathrooms that you can see in the blue. And then they'll know that that's the bedrooms that you can see in the orange. And then they'll know that that's the reception rooms you can see in the white.
Yep.
And that's key. Whereas if you go to someone else's listing, and I've maybe got one, here's one I made earlier, I suppose. So if you go to someone else's listing, and I'll just show you that, then it becomes really apparent, maybe that's really important that you actually do that. So if you go to another listing, and there you go, that's it. How are you supposed to know what anything is?
It's just like
Especially if you can't read it. It's like you've got no chance. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think that's got a lot to do with it. Now that's just one. I mean, you say a floor plan, but it's important that everybody knows the floor plan. Everybody engages with it differently. And believe it or not, 10% of people actually gravitate to make an offer on a property based on the floor plan. What that
I've actually had feedback when I've been at appointments, and people will say when they're looking for their next property to move on to, if there's not a floor plan, they come out of the listing. That people go to that, they'll go to the floor plan. If there isn't one, well, they move on. So it absolutely is crucial.
I think the other one for me is you mentioned about professional photography, where you actually you actually can see out the window when you're looking at the room itself, so you can actually physically see out the window. Whereas a lot of inexperienced photographers, what they'll do is they'll just take a room and they'll take the photograph. It might be a bit dark because the white balance goes out because of the window, but then they turn the balance up in the room, the contrast up in the room to make the room look brighter. But then the window fades away to just white. There's no really anything there. You can't see anything outside anymore. Whereas a professional photographer tends to take 2 photographs on a tripod. They put one with the room bright, so the window disappears, and then they put one with the room dark, so the window actually is seen outside, and then they merge the two together. So it actually looks perfect. Now that is another type of high quality listing, because especially if you've got a fantastic view out your window, if there's a bay window and anything like that, because then you're going to see blue skies. You're going to see some sort of, you'll not be seeing into a building now. You'll be seeing out to a shore or something like that. And I know it's difficult, but when you go into a laptop or anything like that, you zoom in, you'll be able to see it easily. So I think that's another one. And I think you picked up on video. How important do you think video is nowadays?
Well, if you take, for example, we sold a property just last week where they've not even viewed it because that video is so in detail, it's so in depth, and it is that walkthrough that is their virtual viewing. So because we go in so much detail and showcase the property, they've not viewed it, but they have offered, and that is their property. It's currently going through conveyancing. So that just shows you, and that's not just a one-off. That isn't just us just pulling a one-off. That is something that we see more and more frequent is actually, and that's why it is crucial as well, because it's that supporting piece. Yes, you've got the professional photography, but it's that supporting piece, and it all molds together to get that buyer.
Do you think that's a lot to do with people that are further afield that don't have enough time?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And do you think people further afield will have a bigger budget for buying than people locally?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it'd be beneficial then to target somebody further afield if somebody's wanting the highest price possible for their property, and have that sort of market presence, which is what retargeting is all about, and actually making sure you appear on things like mobiles and that. So I think it's safe to say that in this day and age, a video walkthrough and a talk-up is actually probably one of the most essential things. Interestingly enough, I just read an article today from one of the experts in the industry in terms of estate agency, Jonathan Hanford, and Jonathan actually said, "Is it the case that the silent movie videos are now getting so cliched that they're dying out?" And this is just to walk through with the music. Nobody's talking to them about the area. Nobody's talking to them about what the property's got. And he's actually done a huge analysis on this, and he actually says a lot of people are now actually switching off to that type of video format. because it's just a silent movie. It's just literally music and walking through a property, and it's like, yeah, okay, I've seen loads of them before.
Absolutely. And I think as well, it's not everybody can picture or visualize. So us doing that walkthrough and actually saying, look, there's potential with this room to do X, Y, or Z. And it's almost like you're spelling it out to them, aren't you? But not everybody can do that just looking at photos and trying to piece together the flow, but actually talking and saying, look, if it was me, I'd be knocking that wall through, I'd be extending this, I'd be adding this. Doing that then makes people actually visualize themselves, and then they can actually see it turning into their home. So it's that we're doing as well.
So it's safe to say it's a bit like, depending on the type of property, from almost like Homes Under the Hammer to Grand Designs, and in between.
Yeah.
In terms of what we're trying to do here, and hit that right target market. So when we're doing video, then it's important to do that and then get over across that message. How important is it to talk about the area then?
Oh, that is just a given. We need to speak about the area, because again, as we've mentioned, they're maybe not from this area. They may be from out with Fife, out with the UK perhaps. So actually they don't know the proximity to, we're going to say it, the Fife Coastal Path. They maybe don't know the proximity
Got
to
that
that.
in there. Thank you.
So we need to do that. We need to tell them about the area, because they could actually be from the area, but they maybe don't actually know all of the nitty-gritty. So we need to speak about the area. Absolutely.
Definitely, I would say so as well. It's a given, and one of the things I did notice, and I've done it, because I've travelled around the world a bit, and I don't know if you do this as well, but when people ask you where you're from, in order, there's no point in me saying I'm from, a wee town in the middle of nowhere, because they've no idea what it is. So my go-to every single time is, well, I'm just kind of outside St Andrews, and believe it or not, on some occasions, on quite a lot of occasions, when you go around the world, it's like people go, where? Well, St Andrews, the home of golf. It's like, don't know what you're talking about. Scotland. Yeah, I know Scotland. I know Edinburgh. It's like, I know Edinburgh. No, what do you mean Edinburgh? It's like, yeah, you know Edinburgh. Well, we're just across the water. So you look right across the water from Edinburgh, and we're in that wee place that's got a dog's head called Fife. And up the tip of there is St Andrews, which is the home of golf, which is where golf first started, and all the rules and regulations are. That's where. Oh, right. Okay, I remember. And see, people get that, but most people just know Edinburgh. They don't know there it is. So could you imagine then if that's the case? And you're probably right about the talk-ups are so important for people outside the area, because they would have no idea what Anstruther is then.
No.
God forbid Arncroch, which is like two or three places in the middle of nowhere. That's it, really. And then Connacher. And then, you've got all these different places. Fruchie. What? Fruchie? Is that a fruit? So it's, I get it. It's important to talk about the area when you're talking through a video, because essentially, is it safe to say we're selling a lifestyle and not really the property?
Oh, it's absolutely a lifestyle, and that's why we need to do the talk up as well. But that's why we also need to be the experts in our area, and we also need to understand the property, because again, when we're speaking about the area, we can't just say the same pinpoints for each property for each area, because actually, if it's a family home, for example, we then need to pinpoint the schools, the commuting links. So and this is where you're experts in your area, understanding the location and understanding the demographic that's going to be looking at that property. And again, that's why the talk up's important, because again, when people are so busy, at least then if they're watching that video and they're finding out, okay, Bell Baxter's 2 miles away, or University of St Andrews, it's just, they don't need to then look at the property and go, right, okay, hang on a second, where does that mean? They don't need to go and do that research and try and find it out. We're telling them it's all in that one video. They don't need to do anything more than buy it, basically.
Yeah, effectively that's what it is, and that's probably why you're saying it. You often get people just offering on the property without actually walking in the door.
Yeah.
Because they've really not got the time, and they see that video walkthrough, and they know about the area already. Maybe they've holidayed here, and then they've gone back to where they are, and then that's given them the confidence and the comfort that the fact that it is what it is. It does what it says in the tin. I think that's important. How important then is you talked about the third thing, which is effective marketing. What could we say about effective marketing then?
So we have seen an increased number of properties on the market. So say just shy of 700,000 on the market now versus 2 years ago, just shy of 500,000. So that's additional marketing, which in itself speaks for itself, but is a significant difference. So again, capitalizing on that, and it's those extra marketing services that are offered by said estate agent. What are they offering? Are they just doing a bog standard? That's it on Rightmove. That's it on Zoopla. Are you even on Zoopla? Are you even on S1 Homes? Where actually are they advertising? And again, are they actually investing in doing you as a feature property, as a premium listing, and also on that listing as well? What does that listing include? And you've probably noticed it as well, listings of other agents, they've actually reduced the amount of information they're putting on their listings. They're not giving you the full descriptions and a breakdown of the rooms, the sizes. It's just gone to like a generic blurb on the back of a book.
So basically, the only people that could make a commitment to buying it are people that actually view the property. Because they really have no confidence in the fact that the sizes aren't there, so they can't actually get an idea how big the room is. And I think that's why it's important then, as you say, to do the video walkthrough, because then you can talk about, if you walk into a room and you see the bed overtaking the room, it's easy enough to say that that's actually a Super King bed, by the way. So then it gives it perspective about the fact that, okay, that's a lot wider and just a lot longer. So if I had a normal bed like mine, that would be a big room. So I think that's important as well. So talk ups, premium listings, social media promotions. How important is social media now?
Well, everybody is like that these days. Nobody walks down the street and isn't on their phones. So that is
television.
It is, absolutely. It's right there. It's convenient. You can do it while you're doing everything. So that's again.
Except for driving.
Well, yeah, there is that. Yeah, we don't want to get in trouble for that. So everybody's there. So again, it's capitalizing on that and realizing, but it's also just not being generic with it as well. It's again honing in. We're not just putting up a generic post, we're honing in and again specializing in that property in the area. And that's again why with ourselves, we're not just on social media, we have again the micro region pages, because then that shows that we're experts in each area. And then all it takes is for somebody to go on and they can see that, okay, they're an expert in that area. And this is why, this is the videos that's on there. This is the facts that they're giving us. So again, social media is massive because it's right there and that's all the information they need.
Do you think then that a social media strategy for an estate agent is an extra, or do you think it's essential today?
Oh, it's absolutely essential today, and we prove that day in, day out. It's essential. I mean, you've got your Main Street Lucas sold from social media. We had the Fifes as well, sold from social media.
We've had sold from social media.
And this is why we always say to people when it's sold from social media, if you're not following, you are missing out, because this is where the people are seeing it. Get following, and you need to be keeping an eye on the page. Set it so that you get a notification every single time we post something so that you're not missing out. And absolutely, social media is an essential.
I think you're absolutely right. I personally, I could see it every day where almost the television's now relegated to the radio in the background while everybody's on their phones, which has effectively become the new television. It's the paradigm's changed completely, and everybody engages and absorbs information through their mobile phone. More than likely, it's the perfect platform for that. So having a mobile phone strategy, it fits into a screen which is effectively this size, is essential to get your listing seen from the right people. And using the right tools to do that. So, I can't disagree with you at all to say that that's probably the most important strategy in an estate agent's tool bag, is their digital media strategy and how are they seen online in terms of their presence and how is your property seen. I'm not a big fan, and I must say that, of Rightmove, Prime Location and Zoopla. So why am I not right? Why would you ask that? And why would you say that, Jim, that you're not a fan of that? Because if you've got a property and you want somebody to see it, you don't want them to see everybody else's at the same time. You just basically want them to see yours. So when they come in and for example, they do a search and they do maybe 250 to 350,000, you're probably going to get about 5 or 6 properties for them to choose from. You then have to work on how your property is going to stand out and make it look the most attractive in consideration to everything else that's on there. But why would you need to do that if you can ensure that you could appear on here on a mobile phone and people would actually click on it and they would go direct to your property instead of actually seeing everybody else's at the same time? And I think that is probably an essential tool that most estate agents should be using nowadays in terms of their strategies, in terms of the digital media strategy. Because if, as I said before, you know, you walk in, you could buy it from anybody, and if you see, look, a tin of baked beans. Why is a tin of baked beans, Heinz for example, why is it £1.50 in the Spar shop, and yet when you walk into Aldi's and Lidl's, it's down at about 75 pence? Because in the Spar shop, that's the only tin of beans you can pick. In Aldi's and Lidl's, you've got a choice of everybody else's, which makes it cheaper. So that's why I've never been a big fan of Rightmove, Prime Location and Zoopla. However, there's ways and means to strategize that in order to make you stand out from the crowd, from everyone else. But there's also ways to take traffic from these websites and actually direct them to your website and to your property listing. And it's having an estate agent able to do that. I think that's another strategy. You've got another question you've got to ask an estate agent when they sit in front of you is, what is your strategy for driving traffic to my property? And then ask them to write a list and produce it right in front of you. That would be interesting.
It would be interesting, especially if they're saying as well, what are they doing to drive them directly to their property?
Yeah.
That's when we can come in with our presentation. And then obviously we have just recently launched the QR codes, which again, that takes them direct to that property. Nobody else's. It takes them
I noticed that.
direct right to their.
I walked past an estate agent's board the other day, a different estate agent in the East Neuk area, and I scanned the QR code on the board because it looks like they've got QR codes on the boards, and you could easily just mistake that for then, oh, that's exactly what Fife Properties does. But do you know, it actually gives you a list of all the properties in that area when you scan it. Imagine someone selling your house and they've got a QR code on the board, on your board for your house, advertising other people's properties.
Yep.
Is that what you paid for?
It's not just putting window cards of every other
I
property.
would be raging. I'd be raging if somebody had a QR code advertising other people's properties on my board. I've paid for that board. And you're advertising someone else's property on this board that I've paid for. It's outside my house.
Yep.
So when they're looking at mine going, oh, that's great. Oh, there's another one. There's another one that might be just as good. Where's that one? Oh, right, let's go and see that one round the corner.
And it'll happen. That's the thing. It will absolutely happen. Absolutely. And then
so I think that's absolutely right. So when we then think about that, and then we come to your fourth one, what is your fourth top tip then for expediting the property sale?
All about pricing. It's got to be priced right, and we see this day in, day out. I can't remember what property we were discussing, but it was listed, and straight away you said to me, "What's wrong with that?" And I said, "Price point." Because when you get to it as well, it's trying to understand when you get to your higher price points. So we're talking 400 plus. If you're going in at
499,000.
Yeah, or going on at 430, when it goes up in your 25,000 increments, you're missing a whole market. And it's understanding that. And again, it's having your agent, are they an expert in understanding that, are going on at 950, something so random like that. Again, you're missing all these different brackets, and it's understanding that.
So let me just explain that in layman's terms for anybody out there that maybe doesn't understand what we're talking about pricing on the social media. Most estate agents are still working pre-internet. In other words, they're working on pricing strategy, which is pre-internet. It doesn't accommodate what the internet does. So what you do is when you go on to Rightmove, for example, you've got price bandings going all the way up. Now, when you go up to about 300,000, it's more or less every 10,000 in the price band. So you've got 280, 290, 300. When you get to 300,000, it jumps to 325. It jumps to 350. It jumps to 375. It jumps to 400. And when you get to 400 above, 425, 450, 475, 500. And then I think it actually starts to jump 500 to 525 to 550. And then it gets to 50,000 increments after that. Because obviously, if you've got 600,000, then you're not particularly bothered about 50,000 here or there because it's not that significant in the process. However, if you put your property on and it's got a home report of 500,000 and you put it on at 499,950, for example, you'll get everybody at lists, at searches up to 500,000. You will appear in that search, definitely. Actually, if somebody else has got 500,000 on theirs, they will appear here first, by the way, in the highest to lowest. If you've got 50 quid less, you're down here now.
Yep.
So you either want to get bang on the price band, for that reason. But when you're at this price band of 499 or 499,950 or 299,950 or whatever, and you miss that price banding, you'll get everything up to that price banding, and you will be the highest in that price banding. So you will look the least attractive. When you search from the price banding just above that, where you've just missed, you're now excluded from that audience, and yet you would be the lowest price band in that search, and you'd look the most attractive in that search because you would be the lowest price in that. So that's why it's important to understand that you get the pricing right to accommodate what the internet and what the property portals actually search in their price bandings for that reason. $9.99, we're not Woolies.
Yeah.
We're not home bargains. We're not giving your house away for nothing. We're selling a house to maximize the value at the end. So $9.50, $9.99, 500 increments, anything like that, it just doesn't make sense at all to accommodate property portals. It's an old pre-internet strategy, way before the internet existed, and it still has remnants in today in terms of pricing. You can go on any website for right now on Rightmove, and you'll see estate agents that have done that, and they just don't get it. They don't get it at all. They think that's the right thing to do, and everybody else is built into that because most people actually, let's be honest, go home bargains. So they're used to seeing $9.99. They're used to seeing 2 for 1s. It's like, but your house isn't a bargain. Your house is to be sold for the best price. So that's why you should be ignoring strategies like that. But you're absolutely right. It's pricing it competitively. And overpricing can actually lead it to being on the market a lot longer.
Absolutely.
But sometimes you need to be prepared for that. So if you've not got anywhere else to go yet, you've not found anywhere yet, then why not just see how you get on? See how you get on. You have to realign it later on to bring it down to a competitive price strategy to compete with everybody else. Then fair enough. But could you imagine if you shoot for the stars and you actually hit it? But if you don't, you can catch the moon on the way down.
And it's that, I think, again, it's knowing the agent, knowing it's when they're wanting to realign down, what are they suggesting that it realigns down to? If they're only going to take this 150 grand house and they say, well, just take 5 grand off, again, it's understanding it's going up in 10 grand increments. So again, that's not doing anything. It's not getting out to a new audience. The same people are seeing it. They're just seeing 5 grand.
I could hear somebody right now saying, "What? I'm going to take £10,000 off my house." Is that right? Is that right in realignment? I don't think so.
No,
but that's all we're doing is we're introducing it to a new audience, aren't we?
Exactly. And it's educating that it is just realigning it to see that new audience to then push it back up. And then that's where we show our examples to show this is X, Y, and Z that it's worked for. And actually, they ended up getting more than for what it was originally listed for. So actually, it went in our favour.
That loads of times.
Exactly.
Like, really? Wow, 100,000 extra. That's weird. But it does work. It's human psychology, isn't it? Everybody thinks they're going to get a bargain. You know how I know that? Because many years ago, when I used to buy houses myself, when I remember buying a house and it had been put on at a deliberately low value, it got everybody in the door at that time. It went to a closing date, and we actually paid significantly more than actually what it was on it in the first place, or what it was really valued at, because we wanted it. So that was a really good strategy, and that pointed out to me that sometimes that could be a secondary strategy to the initial first stage strategy. So there's a number of strategies you can do all the way through this, but it doesn't mean to say you just go with one and hope for the best and fingers crossed. And I think that's what there's a common misconception that you should just stick with the same pricing strategy all the time, and then if it doesn't work, you should be dropping your price all the time. When in actual fact, you should be realigning your price. Dropping means you're giving money away. Realigning means there's an expectation to push people back up when they get in the door. I think that's an education process, isn't it, for the estate agent?
Absolutely. It's for the estate agent to do, but that's where we have to use our examples to showcase where it's worked, and we're not just giving you stories, but again, dealing with facts. So it's again showing that.
But there's no doubt then that a well-priced property can actually attract immediate interest if you have to. Yeah. Okay, so what's the fifth one that you suggest then?
Presentation. It's all about presentation because it starts from the minute it's the curb appeal. as I've said before, it's like going on a first date and not making that effort. It's all about first impressions. So it's presenting it well. For starters, have you clean and tidied? Have you hoovered up? Have you actually cleaned the work surfaces? Is it really, really cluttered? It looks like there isn't space, but actually there is space. We just need to declutter a wee bit. Let's showcase the space, especially when it comes to the listing for the photography, but also keep it like that for when your viewers come through the door as well, because you don't want them to have seen it all like this, the video, the photos that you've invested in getting that professional photographer and our video works, and then they walk through the door for the viewing and it's like chalk and cheese and it's completely different. It needs to have that wow factor for when they come in, because it's all about first impressions. And something else we speak about as well in terms of that kind of presentation is smells. That's something to be conscious of as well. Don't be nose blind, even if you have to get somebody in that'll just be honest with you and say, but that all comes into the presentation. And then it is just also being flexible. What is your agent doing in terms of flexibility and getting the viewers through the door, and how is that being accommodated? So it all comes down to the flexibility and the presentation.
It's a lot to do with flexibility of viewing times, isn't it? Because some people just can only view at certain times a day. And if you're not flexible enough to be able to accommodate them, then you've effectively lost a buyer or a potential buyer, haven't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody's got busy schedules, busy lives. And it's understanding that and what can we do to get things in place, even if it has to be.
And it's going to be, I mean, it's only a temporary thing. You're putting yourself out your way in order to accommodate somebody.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody has to leave at some point to do some food shopping or walk the dog or nip somewhere. So it's just using that time and working around it and being flexible for both the seller, but also for the buyer as well, because the ultimate goal is to get the property sold.
Yeah. So this then brings me to the thing about, if you're a landlord, because, you know yourself, well, I know myself being a landlord, you've probably known quite a few landlords you've sold properties for as well. Landlords are not really in a comfortable position that sometimes they can actually just turn the property around and get it all ready for sale. So therefore, sometimes it's not the very best. So if you are considering selling a rental property, it's important to weigh up the pros and cons of keeping the tenants in place during the sale. More often than not, sometimes it's a case that I usually just say you're probably better to move the tenants out, because then you're because of the draconian legislation that's put in place just now by the government in terms of saying, look, I'm putting my house up for sale. It's like you're going to have to move out. The local authority is very draconian towards it, and they just tell people to stay put. So it could be 12 months before you even get somebody out of property if they decide to stay put. So therefore, you actually restrict the number of buyers for your property because you've no longer got vacant possession. And that could cause a real problem. So I usually say typically, and plus the fact is, I had it with somebody today that actually spoke to me about it. And I says, well, to be honest, if you're on a short-term let, you could just give the guy notice, and you'll have 2 or 3 months to give him notice and give him plenty of time, because if you get an offer for it, it will be sold. And he said, to be honest, says, I'll let you look at these photographs that I had of the property beforehand, but it's no like that now. He says, I would probably rather just move the person out and say, look, you're going to have to find somebody else within a reasonable time, and then actually do the property up and get it back to what it is I showed you in the photo. Because it was occupied just now, and he didn't want to, upset the tenant by taking us round. Because and so he showed me the photographs, and I knew the size, and I knew the property before because I'd seen it before anyway, and it gave me a rough idea about what it was. But he really wanted to put back at what it was. So more than often, unless you're selling to another landlord, which effectively the other landlord is wanting it below market value all the time, and you've got a limited audience because you've not got vacant possession, therefore everybody that's looking for to move into it won't even come to see it. And that's a big distraction, a big disruptor for your property. So in some instances, having the tenant property can be advantageous. Some instances it doesn't. It will appeal to investors if you do like myself, but I think with the rental income and the way numbers work, I think in this market, in terms of prices, you're never going to get top dollar for it. I'll give you a classic example. Recently, I had a portfolio of 9 properties come across my desk. I then did the numbers. The person was looking at 597,000 for them. I did the numbers, and I spoke to the local surveyor, and this is a private buy for me personally. This wasn't through Fife Properties. This was just somebody that approached me personally. And I did my numbers and spoke to the surveyor who had actually seen them before, and he says, look, you're probably 100,000 less. But yet my numbers only work at 100,000 less than that, so 200,000 less than where they think they are. So while they're thinking at 600,000, I'm thinking my numbers only work at 400,000. And you see, it's the landlord is only restricted by the finance and getting the cost of that finance, and then what they've got to do for it as well. So so ultimately, you're probably never going to get top dollar to have a tenanted property for that reason. And as I said, it can pose challenges. Tenants may cooperate for viewings and not maintain the property in a presentable state deliberately for that reason, to protect potential buyers overall. To determine the best approach for your specific situation, it's really crucial to consider the factors such as the current market conditions, the nature of your tenancy agreement, and the type of buyers that you aim to attract. For example, if the property is in high demand in an area and a robust rental market, well, keeping the tenants might be beneficial. However, if the target market is owner-occupiers, vacant possession might make the property very more appealing. It will. So we understand that this decision can be complex and dependent on various factors and unique to your property. And ultimately, to be honest, no one really wants to affect anybody. It's no nice thing to do. It's the last resort for every single landlord, myself included. And it's only at the very, very last resort, if nothing else can be resolved, or if the landlord's selling the property, they've got no other choice. Driven by circumstances, more than likely, costs have gone up. Rent controls in place have made it they can't really recoup the costs that have gone up astronomically since inflation. Therefore, they have to sell as a result of that. So I would encourage most landlords, if you're in that position, then to give us a call, and we could probably have tailored advice through that evaluation process for your rental property in Fife. And our expertise can help you ensure that most of the decisions are informed, whether it involves selling with tenants in situ or opting for a vacant possession situation. So with that in mind, and we've covered things like for the seller, we've covered it for the landlords as well. Can you give us some sort of property market context?
So yeah, it is important to note though, these statistics only really relate to, and this is why we said that example of the over 1 million and it was 28 days. That was probably one property. So it's to note that these statistics are just on ones that have successfully sold. Nationally, only about 53% of homes listed for sale in the last 12 months have ended up selling. And when we say selling, because this is again something that we get, is when somebody will come off the phone and they'll, well, what's your position? And they'll go, we've sold our property, and we'll go, oh, brilliant, so cash in the bank. And they'll go, no, we've just accepted an offer, we're going through conveyancing. Well, that just means you're under offer, it's not actually concluded, it's not sold. So that is actually contracts have exchanged and have completed. This means that nearly half of the properties on the market do not achieve a sale, often due to overpricing or poor marketing, or both. It could be both. As a leading property agent in Fife, we're committed to obviously giving the best advice through either obviously these videos, through obviously the podcasts, through all the information we have on social media and the websites. And it's all the strategies that we have as well that ensure the property stands out and it gets your property sold. And it's following these tips, and that's why we'll also say make sure you're always following us so that you're seeing these tips. And also you can be commenting, you can be asking the questions, you can be picking up the phone, you can be messaging us direct. Ask the experts, so it gives you more of a chance, even if you're just swithering just now or you've got some questions. As you always say, Jim, it's always best to ask the questions. The silly question is the question not asked. So we would always rather you reach out to us, ask the questions, because we are experts in the area to get you that successful sale.
Perfect. And on that note, thanks very much for coming on, Sophie. Really appreciate it. If anybody's got any questions later on, please feel free to reach out to us and message us direct on this post, or you can contact us the usual numbers, or just put a thing in the comments as well, and we'll pick it up from there. Until next time, guys, we'll see you on the weekly property market show, which is Saturday morning at 9:30, and we'll be doing a lettings show this week. So until then, we'll see you later. Bye-bye for now.